What's up, Steve? How you doing, man? It's good to have you back on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, man. I'm excited for this next conversation.
Totally. I mean, we worked on a leaky gut project together. I was a researcher on that project with y'all. Back in oh man, when was that? I don't know, whatever, many years
10
ago.
years ago.
Damn.
It might have been 11 when we kicked it off, but
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I mean, it's really interesting because like leaky gut has been huge to like figuring out my brain health, getting the nutrients to my brain. And you're looking at it again, seeing all sorts of developments in the research and bringing new things to light that honestly aren't there. Yeah, let's dive into this. First of
well, yeah.
all, what
I-
what for the audience, what is leaky gut?
Well, um, back in a decade ago, when we first brought the first leaky gut series of articles, like a 5,000 word article on it, and we brought together the first research backed protocols at the time, you know, we were breaking the ground for leaky gut. It's now commonplace, and now everybody's kind of the expert. But we did some heavy lifting back then that some other people have piggybacked on, which is awesome and how it's supposed to work. But what we unearthed back then and what was in the research journals was that leaky gut was this condition of the gut where these sort of rubber bands that connect your cells, zonulin, occludin, claudin, these tight junctions were getting overexpressed and sort of separating, or underexpressed and super basically being loose. Like if you put the rubber band around a big thing of crayons, like it never quite goes back. And so when you have this state of laxity in these tight junctions, this is what the research said 10 years ago, then you would have objects, molecules, toxins that were supposed to be inside of the gut still going through and interacting directly with the gut immune system, the gall, and then into the bloodstream. And then from there, what makes leaky gut such a pervasive and serious topic is that everywhere you look across every disease, heart disease to autoimmune conditions to brain related conditions to diabetes, you see a gut component around migrating inflammation and cytokines and inflammatory molecules from the gut emanating at your genetic weakness or your family's history of issues. And so leaky gut is extremely important for these inflammatory conditions. It's extremely important for keeping what we want in the gut and then taking it out of the gut when it's time. Now, research has changed quite a bit in the last 10 years, which is, I mean, maybe you have a different opinion on this, but it's awesome that we have this connection that I didn't even think about, which is that like the protocols we put out and the stuff we did over the last 10 years, they helped people and they did good, I think, but they also didn't quite, I don't know, they didn't quite fix everybody. They didn't quite fix me.
Mhm,
Frankly, they moved the needle forward and people got a
mhm.
lot better than where they were, but it didn't quite fix leaky gut in general. And I think I've uncovered at least part of the reason why that's happened.
Nice. Yeah, very true. I mean, there's the whole pathway through our digestive system that we need to address also, that sometimes gets ignored. Like from the mouth to the stomach to the intestines, like all of that. And I know that at Healthy Gut, you guys really like focus on each step of that digestion and make sure we're getting things solidified, further upstream so that it affects what goes on downstream. But I mean, what is some of the new research bringing up, and what is your experience with clients?
Yeah, so basically what happened is, like I said, Kevin and I go back a decade now, I believe, and I thought the book on leaky gut was kind of written, but then we introduced some new products in the world. We introduced Tribunal Next, we introduced Holoimmune, and then digestive enzymes have always been around. And Holozymes is I think the best version of that, but when the people started reporting back certain things, like my food, like my elimination diet, I had eliminated all my foods down to like 8 foods. And in 1 month, I was able to double to 16 when I couldn't have added in any foods for the past year. Or, over the past 60 days, I've doubled from 10 foods to 30 foods, or that's tripling, but doubling to 20 foods. These types of stories kept coming in like, hey, I've been on a low FODMAP diet for 2 years. Every time I try to re-add in a FODMAP heavy food, I get, bloating, gas, like, diarrhea, constipation, or whatever the symptoms are. I can't do it and I feel stuck. And then I started using your product, and it's, I'm able to reintroduce foods now. And so that was like really weird to me, because that's not why I designed the products. They were designed for other situations and other conditions. But the feedback from people was in this sort of way that suggested that their capacity to tolerate food that they were sensitive to or intolerant of, their capacity to deal with allergies, environmental toxins, was increasing when they couldn't before, suggested to me like, wow, this is going deeper. Like something's being impacted here in the gut, probably around leaky gut, that I'm not quite sure what's happening. And so I just out of sheer curiosity and wanting to be able to explain this to other people, I started rereading all the literature on leaky gut. And in the past 3 years, the really cool thing that's happened is that now everybody's doing gut research. Like around the globe, there are so many gut papers coming out every month. It's crazy. And that is amazing, because back even 5 years ago, there was maybe like, I don't know, 10, 20 real papers that were like important to the field, or not, I'm talking about leaky gut specifically, like in the general gutscape, there's probably a million. But in the last 3 years, there's been an extreme explosion of research in this area. And what it to me started to say was that there's actually 5 layers, and that tight junctions, all of this focus on a lot of the protocols that you and I worked on, and a lot of protocols I did on myself, as well as talked about publicly, were very heavy into amino acids like glutamine. They were heavy into D and A and zinc L-carnosine, and gut healing powders. And that's because there was like 1 or 2 studies on each one of those related to leaky gut. And it shows basically if you have a low amount of that nutrient, you will have less tight junction, basically expression, and more leaky gut. But I know a lot of people who have, just fine vitamin D status and just fine vitamin A and amino acid status, but they still have food intolerances and leaky gut and chronic inflammation. So that doesn't explain it all. And so that's what I kind of started to realize from some of these seminal papers, one of which was from VCU, where they basically said, hey, there's not 1 layer to a leaky gut. There's actually 4 layers. And now I've added a 5th layer. And it begins to actually build this layer cake, this wedding cake analogy, which is what you would expect nature to have. Like, just like a castle has a moat, to keep the invaders out. It has like a drawbridge. If you're lucky, you get like a dragon or an alligator, maybe. And then you have some like walls, to keep the everybody inside the kingdom safe. Like our gut is built with a similar system of resiliency and series of layers to it. And so how could leaky gut just be 1 layer? And now it totally started to make sense why these products would be causing differential reactions in certain individuals. And then these papers started coming out revealing that there's probably 5 layers. Maybe it'll end up being more in the future, but at least 5 main layers to having someone have a leaky gut, having one of these conditions where they have chronic inflammation emanating out of the gut and affecting one of their other areas.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So what are those 5 layers? I'm assuming something like mucosal barrier, the endothelial, like inside the endothelia being the inside of the intestines, and the villi that increases the surface area so we can absorb. Um,
So
yeah.
I would count that as the physical barrier.
Okay.
So
Physical.
I've kind of named them. Basically, the atmospheric or the oxygen concentration is sort of layer 1. Then you have defense chemicals, and I'm sort of like talking about this from the inside of your small intestine outward, or the upper large intestine, but you have these defense chemicals that are like things that go out and they grab toxins and LPS and they make them inert. And that's sent out from those gut cells, those specialized gut cells. Then you have your microbiome layer, so your alive layer, and then you have your physical layer, which is what you just said, the mucosal membrane, and then behind that you have your tight junctions, which are interrelated to the actual cell health, and then behind those you have your immune layer or your immune barrier. And so those are those five, basically the five layers from the inside outward, and from like where the food would interact with your body into basically your bloodstream.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, also what you were talking about with the food intolerances and how you were seeing people like coming back with able to eat way more foods. Like that's what we want. We want to have resilience, right? We don't want to be dependent on like, oh, I can only have this, I can only have that, or in order for me to eat something, I need to have these supplements or whatever. Like I'm all about empowerment and not being dependent and removing all dependencies. So that's that's right on. That's perfect, man.
Yeah, and I would
I
say that more than more than what any sort of lab test could tell you about your zonulin expression or the LPS in your bloodstream, like that's a better marker of, are you actually healing, right? Like third party data from lab testing is extremely important, and I'm a big fan of it. And if money is no object, then get as many tests as you can from everywhere you can. But if money is an object, which it is for everybody, including me usually, then um, get some data, but also just focus on what you want out of life, like you said, which is like going out to a restaurant and not being worried about cross contamination, or eating a much more expanded diet. Maybe you never get back to wheat or dairy, but maybe you do, and you don't worry about it. I think these, as well as like other markers like skin health, eye health, hair health, any sort of joint or other brain related inflammation signals, these are all signs that like the gut itself is become resilient, and
Mhm.
it's not going to be that impacted should you walk into a moldy environment or should you get cross contaminated. And that to me is the opposite of leaky gut. That's the resilient bulletproof gut that I want, and that I want everybody else to have.
That's perfect. Yep. Absolutely, man. So you said testing. You're a big fan of testing. When is testing not something that you recommend? I mean, beyond like money, not an object, but
Yeah.
you expressed to me like testing kind of pissed me off recently.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I just think that zonulin's a very in vogue marker to get tested right now. You can get it. Some people test it through the stool. Some people test it through the blood. Um, I don't know that it's that important of a marker. I mean, again, it's helpful, but not that. I mean, it might cost you a couple $100s to get that marker tested, and I would rather see you put that into better supplements, longer duration of your healing program. I'd rather see you put that into a doctor's appointment or other healing modality, because as I was describing those layers, remember, zonulin is only one part of one layer. It's one
Hmm.
part of the physical layer, and there's no set of data yet that correlates that lower zonulin means like a more resilient bulletproof gut. Like we don't have that data yet. And so I would rather gauge symptomology in this case, and I would probably rather take that money and put it towards other risk factors for your health that we know are really important, such as like, what is your iron levels? What is your what is your immune system doing? What is your cholesterol markers? What is your inflammatory markers? Like that kind of data is much more robust and much more trackable over time. Once you have a few data points that you could say like, hey, I'm getting healthier over time with this kind of stuff, and I'm eliminating things that could just totally screw up all of my protocols. Like if you're anemic, you're not going to heal no matter what you do. If you're anemic, you got to get that figured out. And so that
Hmm.
test, that iron and ferritin testing is much more important than
Hmm.
zonulin test,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And
so
that's
I
the
think
same for brain health. We got to do something about anemia immediately.
get it. I love it. So I think, yeah, so I think testing is important, but I think that it's being over relied upon right now, including food sensitivity testing. I know plenty of people who are allergic, quote unquote, allergic via their testing to like strawberries, watermelon, broccoli, chicken, beef. Like all these are not high
Hmm.
allergic potential foods. These are not inflammatory foods. These are normal foods for a body to be able to break down. And if you're getting lab results showing that kind of stuff, or if you paid 300 or 200 bucks for that, I think that's usually it's just demoralizing. A, B, normally for some folks, if they have a few things, they could just stop eating like, oats or whatever they're eating on a daily basis. But the point is how it works, which is that your body's developing these markers that are testable because it's being exposed to the food on a regular basis, usually. So, no matter what you switch to in the next 2 to 3 months, unless you change what you're doing to heal your gut, that next group of food you eat on a habitual basis will show up in the next round of testing.
Hmm.
There's no amount of eliminating or dieting that fixes a leaky gut. It doesn't work that way. And so I hope that this is encouraging that we can relax around our foods, because it's not about our foods, it's about the breakdown of that food.
Hmm. So when I mean, if food is not what's really causing it, can food fix it?
No. Okay, so okay, let's everybody's, some people will be screaming in the comments like, if you have an anaphylaxis to a food, that's an issue for you, don't eat it. If you eat like cashews and your face balloons up and you have an allergic reaction to it, you have a histamine, don't don't eat that. I'm not telling you you can do stuff that your body's like, hey, I don't love it when you give me oat milk, I give you diarrhea. You give me oat milk, diarrhea. Like, obviously I'm not saying keep doing that, but I'm saying if you're eating a real foodish diet, like a paleo-ish templated diet where most of the stuff's not coming from a package, you're like, that's good enough. And you should focus on the breakdown, the enzyme potential in your body, and then what happens to that. Because every time you eliminated a salicylate, a oxalate, a nightshade, a lectin, a blah, 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 a FODMAP, you keep going down this rabbit hole, you create this anxiety and this nervous system fear response and cortisol response that we can talk about in a bit, that's going to destroy your gut lining. It's going to destroy your mucosal membrane over time. Um, but also you actually change the rest of those layers, because you're removing the fermentation potential, usually products from your diet, the starches, the vegetables, the fruits, all those things, and even some of the grains. Like, I don't particularly think there's that much wrong with corn or oats. Like, I don't see the problem there usually. These all these groups of foods uh, are really important for the microbiome to break down and then cause butyrate production, which keeps oxygen low. It keeps defense chemicals high. It keeps microbiome thick and healthy, and that keeps your tight junctions protected. We
Yeah,
remove
man.
all those foods. We fear on all those foods, and then we might feel slightly better in the short run, but you'll get stuck in this position where it's really hard to get back out of, because you got to rebuild all that.
And that actually tells us a lot with with neuropsychoimmunology, which is basically how our thoughts affect our physiology. So when and as specifically our immune system, immunology, right? So when we fear certain foods, they can affect how our physiology handles them. N- Again, that's not saying like, don't be afraid and then you'll be fine, right? Like there's actually other aspects of this, but that's definitely a component that plays into it. And the neurology of our gut health. Well, actually, let's talk about that. The gut brain axis we've talked about before, and essentially how the gut affects the brain and the brain affects the gut. So our digestion affects our neurology affects our digestion. And there is another aspect of that that you brought up recently about the hormones. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. So what I would say at this point is that, and we'll talk about it in a bit here, but I'm teaching a new class on leaky gut, this like leaky gut 2.0, and I think it's the fastest, easiest, and best protocols that produce these sort of breakthrough results. And there's lots of modifications for folks because I know that I can come up with a generic template that's really powerful, but you have to adopt whatever's happening in your life. And so without that customization to each individual, it's not going to produce amazing results. But um, I'm teaching this course, and what I would say, and this has been my true, honest experience across multiple folks now, including my own self, is that you could do everything in that course correctly, and I can pretty much guarantee you'll be feeling better. If it doesn't fix like all your food sensitivities and all your health complaints, then I would almost guarantee that you have an issue with your hormones and or an issue with your nervous system. Because what you just said is that you can take the most powerful prescription drugs and supplements in the world, but if you do not believe in those products, or if you do not believe in their healing capacity, or even your own body's internal capacity to heal or recover from these things, you will sabotage yourself consciously, unconsciously. You'll create chemical messengers, you'll create extra hormones to keep you sick, to keep your gut not working as well, to keep you feeling pain that may not necessarily need to be felt. This is kind of controversial to a lot of folks, but it's 1,000% true if you look at the literature. And if you talk to enough people and see enough tough cases, you see the people that, like myself, I had access to everything in the world. I did every supplement in the world. I did everything. And it wasn't until I spent some time reworking my nervous system that I had a massive breakthrough and some time reworking my hormones. And
Hmm.
so they can and they do feed into each other. Our hormones, for a lot of women, they do have a lot of food sensitivities and can even have some like a lot of gastritis and gut pain, things like that. And even when they try basic stuff like digestive enzymes are a very basic product, highly tolerated by even infants. But some, and it's not all women, but a lot of women, some of them cannot tolerate it because their mucosal membrane is so thin and it's not thick enough to be able to take in these proteases and things like that. There's a lot of things we can do to try to rebuild that membrane from a supplement perspective, but probably the best thing to do is support progesterone and estrogen. Like that is the fastest way to feel better and the fastest way to get that mucosal membrane um, better in all ways. And so um, whether you start with hormones, there's a gut component to detoxifying and expressing hormones properly. You can't you can't just do hormones and feel better. You got to do a gut component. Whether you do neurology and nervous system, there's a gut component and a hormone component. And so at the end of the day, I feel like those are the three domains. If I had to boil down human health, like those, if you only gave me three buckets to play with for the rest of my life, and you said gun to the head, if you don't fix people, we're going to kill you. Those are my three tool sets that I would use.
100%, 100%. And I really love that you brought up the nervous system aspect of that because we get so focused on physical, the physical healing modalities and, functional medicine, treat the lab tests and yada, yada, yada. And if your nervous system shot, um, if you're always in a state of fight or flight or traumatized in some way shape or form, um these things we got to work through that. And
Yeah. Have you heard the term hypervigilance?
yeah.
So I would say that is like one big message I want to get out there because I had it, have it, continue to work on it. Um, I think a lot of us who have to take control of our health, in order to take control of our health, we have to become hyper vigilant around our body, what's going into our body, who's laying their hands on our body, who's telling us what to do with our bodies, how are we going to get well. We have to
Mhm.
be hyper vigilant about our markers, our test markers. The doctor says, oh, these are normal, and you're like, I don't feel normal.
Mhm.
um, and so we have to almost become, either we already are hyper vigilant or we become more hyper vigilant. And then you start to tell someone, you can't have a speck of gluten, you can't have a speck of sugar, you can't have a speck of FODMAPs or lectins or salicylates or oxalates. And that causes even more hypervigilance. And that hypervigilance is 1,000% in your nervous system, causing um, effects. And oftentimes those effects, while extra release of like norepinephrine and adrenal related chemicals that kind of keep you focused and make sure you don't mess up and make sure you get the help you need in the doctor's appointment, that, you have to have a compensatory reaction to that, to rest, rejuvenate, relax. Otherwise you start to deplete yourself, and then your whole life can become this hypervigilant slash control slash fear lifestyle, which I don't want to make wrong because I was there too. But until I retrained literally like the unconscious part of my brain, like I
Mhm.
did a bunch of neurofeedback, not the traditional neurofeedback, but this other type of low voltage neurofeedback to really just relax my system, until I started going in float tanks and just doing nothing with no inputs, until I started doing some, ketamine and other psychedelic medicines to just give my nervous system different inputs that, hey, the world is safe, you are safer. That was a huge breakthrough for me. That caused a different possibility with food reactions, my relationship to dairy, my relationship to
Mhm.
grains. All that stuff got so much better.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost like what happens to those of us who basically go through the conventional medical model and are not pleased with it, sometimes gaslit I work with people who are like, yeah, the doctor's gaslighting me on this and that, and like, yeah, I hear you. Like, becoming this like abusive relationship with medicine, and then you're like, well, I'm the only one I can trust, and so there's this whole like traumatic experience that happens through this relationship you have with medicine and those who care for your who are supposed to like help you get healthy, right? And it's not working, and so that hypervigilance, that fear response, that like a kind of feeling that everything's coming to get you, like this is coming at me, like I gotta do this and this and this joke I made. It's like, all right, listen, you need to calm down, which means you need to meditate. Joe Dispenza meditation for 2 hours. You need to go out in the middle of the woods with no shoes every single day. You need to meditate on a rock. You need to do breathing exercises, and then you'll be healthy, right? And you have to. Oh, and don't forget to do the like all your supplements at the right time in this order, and do a coffee enema every day too. That's how you're going to get healthy. And it's like, no, that's how you're going to stress yourself out, right? So it's like this loop there. But yeah, I just love that you address these other aspects of healing. And I love that you're re-releasing, or not re-releasing, you're making a next version, a 2.0, on our work with the Leaky Gut program, and really elevating it to the next level, and helping people to not just uh, you know deal with, I guess it's like temporarily healing the gut almost. It's like, here, as long as you're taking these supplements and have these things removed, then your gut's going to be good. But that's not the goal. The goal is to actually solve the issue and have it complete. So I really appreciate that you're re-releasing this.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I mean, look, this is a lifelong thing for me, and it's what I want for a lot of people. And I think I think that no one's talking about this oxygen concentration problem. I think there's a lot of people not talking about this. Basically, if you drive your gut immune relationship in the wrong direction, and then you just remove the foods, the theory was that will balance itself. But I don't think that's the truth. And clinically speaking, I haven't seen that be the truth, that you can just release or relieve the toxin and then suddenly the body knows, oh, I should balance. Instead, what I've seen is not just stays like this. And then when you reintroduce the potentially offending food or chemical or whatever, it goes, hey, it's back, go attack it. And so I feel like we need to shift the conversation, like you said, to how do we recreate the terrain inside the gut, inside the small intestine, the large intestine, such that it's the right atmosphere for the microbiome to grow healthy, thick, like protective, and then that will definitely send a bunch of messenger chemicals into the gut immune system that will help it relax. It'll help retrain it. It will increase mucosal production. It'll increase tight junction, all that stuff. But also, some people are just making too many IgEs to foods, like all kinds of foods. Some people are just missing balancing cells called T helper cells. And there are new products available that work for these situations that can rebalance things. And if you do that, it's not like necessarily like a thing where, like, if you have you have no thyroid, you might take Armor medication the rest of your life, like you literally don't have enough T3, T4. I don't view these new protocols that way. I view them more as you are maybe very frail and weak, or maybe super overweight or something, and you're going into the gym and you're like, I would like to get fitter and stronger, but this is your gut and your immune system we're talking about. And so everybody knows who's gone to the gym and tried to like squat or bench press. Yes, start with the bar, and even the bar or less is really hard, and it's kind of embarrassing, and it or at least it can be, and it can be hard. But as you build up that muscle, as you build up that capacity and that tolerance, like, you can do stuff around the house easier. You can pick up the dog. You can pick up the kid. You can do chores much easier. You have more stamina for everything. The same thing is true with these new protocols. We can rebuild the gut and retrain the immune system in a way that it becomes stronger and more corrective to itself over time, such that when we take a break from the supplements and just reintroduce a really healthy, real food diet, as long as we're getting enough of the incoming signals like fermented foods and starches and vegetables and fruits, I don't know that you'll need a lot of those specific supplements in the future, unless you have, some other underlying thing that's happened to you, or you're at a certain age above 65. You might be able to go like a decade or so without specific gut support if you eat this really, awesome real food diet with fermented. You need some sort of like probiotic slash dead bug dirt. You can go out and like garden, have a dog, and eat fermented foods would be the perfect trio. But even if you just go do that, but your immune system is currently not corrected, it's kind of off, like doing a protocol like this can reset it. So those measures sort of protect it.
Nice. So tell me about the Leaky Gut 2.0 program.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. We're going to walk through the 5 layers. I'm going to show you the research on each layer, why each layer matters. If you're into gut health and this is like not your first leaky gut experience, I'm going to try to help you understand, like, this might be one of your layer issues without a test, like using symptoms and tracking and things like that. And then we're going to talk about the basic protocol. We'll give you a big old coupons off of our products if you want to use our products. If you want to use someone else's, that's great. It'll cover usually the admission price. So we'll give you back enough money that the course will end up being free at the end of it. And if you don't like it, you get a 30-day refund. But beyond that, we're going to talk about what happens if things don't go as expected. What happens if you currently have constipation, or you get more constipation, you have histamine, you have some other related issue to the gut to and food and things like that. And we're going to give away extra protocols. So to me, it's like a third the price with the coupon that we're giving away is about a third of what a pretty high end doctor would cost at $97. Um, and I think it'll be highly value packed. The protocols plus the health coaching we offer at Healthy Gut will, I believe, be very helpful for your leaky gut. And that's my goal. It's like I gotta get this message out there in some way. It's going to be at least 90 minutes. It might go longer. I'm still working on the slide deck, and it's getting kind of big.
I know how that goes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Cool. So when does this launch?
So it's going to go live on the 15th. So people who sign up beforehand will get the coupon and the ability to ask questions. If
This
you're
will
listening to
probably go live on the 16th.
okay.
But will you still have a recording available?
Yep. So that at that point, the recording we'll have the recordings out. You'll still have access to those. You'll miss out on the live Q&A component, but that'll be recorded for you as well. And like I said, your purchase gets you access to our health coaching at the company for free, a discount on the products. And if you don't like it, there's a 30-day refund. So, um, you know, I think
Nice.
that's a pretty sweet offer.
Nice. And you offered for my audience $100 off. Um, Code I think is Feed a Brain. And you can go to feedabrain.com/leaky gut and it'll take you right there. Um, yeah, man. And you said that you also discount your supplements. You can either get your supplements or anybody else's, like, doesn't matter. Either way is great. You do have very, very good supplements. I mean, of course you do. Like you've been through it yourself. Have a whole slew of supplements you've tried and you've worked with clients with and created what you needed to. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
I
So I want to correct the record. It's Kavin 100. It's a special coupon just for this.
thank you.
It's just for this class. So Kavin 100 for the Feed a Brain group. You guys can use that. I think it'll be live for like an extra week after when this goes live. And then yes, people who join the course will get they'll get an extra special coupon code to lower the cost of anything we talk about in the course that we sell. I mean, obviously I can't give you discounts on other people's products. We will be talking about other brands and other cool products on the market. But yeah, I know that this is can be an expensive journey. I know it was extremely expensive for me. And so I want to try to make that more approachable.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, I mean, healing digestion was what made a huge difference for me. It wasn't until I began a leaky gut protocol that I began to regain clarity after my brain injury. And that is huge. I mean, it's what's the word I'm going for? Invaluable. Yeah, I don't know. You can't put a price on that. It's amazing. And thank you for making this so affordable and getting this information out there.
Yeah, you're so welcome, man. I really hope it's inspiring to people. I hope it's helpful to people. And yeah, that's the goal, right? Whether you attack it from the nervous system or from the hormones or the gut, at some point you'll end up touching on one of all three of those. And so if it's time for you to go deeper into the gut healing, then I think this might end up being, a really great investment.
I absolutely agree. Well, awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. I'm looking forward to the course and yeah, appreciate you, my man.
Thanks, Gavin.
All right, cheers.
Someone take me to a doctor.